refuse to just exist. I'd rather shoot and miss. So I'ma raise my fist and live it.
Good afternoon, Ryan. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. As Ryan Long was discussing, he's talking about veterans. If you are a veteran, do me a favor, stand up where you're at and just look front of the room and let everybody else acknowledge them. If you're a veteran, let me see you raise your hand. I just want to say thank you for your service. Because if it wasn't for people like you, none of us would be able to be here with the ability to be comfortable and eat in this room. We wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And speaking of sleeping at night, so many people in society, and check this out, talk about the suicide struggle, and that happens. But what about those veterans that come back and struggle with homicidal thoughts? And everybody tells them that all they need to do is to get help. You don't know what it's like to go to bed and sleep 15 minutes and get up and go sleep in your closet because that's the safe place. But then have to wake up the next day and come to an event or go to work or say hello to your family when all you're thinking about is what took place when you weren't here in the United States. I'm an ex-cop, I'm prior military. For some of us, when you kick in a door, see, I call it command presence. When you kick in a door or breach a door, some of you guys and ladies know what I'm referring to. And intel tells you there's 3 subjects inside, but you kick in the door and there's 7. Guess what, as a veteran, you do not have the luxury of doing? You don't have the luxury of pressing pause. And just like in our life, we don't have the luxury in our business. We don't have the luxury in our relationships. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of pressing pause. We have this saying, do we not, veterans? It's called embrace the suck. Embracing the suck is what allows you to move and adapt and overcome. How many of you veterans and non-veterans know what it's like to adapt and overcome? See, it's very hard for us veterans to get back into society and listen to the disrespect that comes our way. And unfortunately, a lot of that disrespect comes from the inside out. But the way that I've learned how to get past that disrespect of self, that inability to acknowledge your awesomeness, the fervor that you gave this wonderful country that we call the United States of America. I call it a 4 count. If you know what a 4 count is, veterans, give me an hoorah. There we go. For those of you civilians, let me give you an example of what a 4 count is. See, in the civilian world, when you do 1 push-up, it's up, down. So it's down, up. In the military world, we do what's called a 4 count. And this is what a 4 count does for us in our life. 1, 2, 3. I will never again disrespect myself, and I will allow those around me to acknowledge my service to this country. 1, 2, 3. I will always acknowledge my honesty, my integrity, my loyalty, and my friggin' service. 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. I will allow those to love me, to acknowledge my sacrifices. I will not always sleep in my closet. I will do my best to serve, to lead, to be a person of influence, a person of impact. 3, recover. For those of you that own companies, do not be afraid to hire a veteran because you don't understand them. For those of you veteran spouses, my hat is off to you because I know what it's like, not as a spouse, but looking at the tears in my wife's eyes as she is uncomfortable with the fact that sometimes I currently only sleep 30 minutes a night. And she can't understand why I can wake up at 2:15 in the morning and go for a 3-mile run. But all she does is love me. And for those of you individuals who have a veteran in your life that is hard for you to love, my ask of you is that you just keep on moving and you keep on loving. And you keep on acknowledging who they are and the sacrifice they gave to our society. Your job as a military spouse is a lot harder than what we have to deal with. I get it. But one day that love is going to come back to you. It might take a week, it might take a year, it might take a decade. But that love is going to come back to you. And acknowledging your influence in that individual's life is not only going to save theirs, but it's going to save yours. See, there was a moment, and we all have that thing that brings us to the line in the sand. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on duty as a police officer. A lady runs across the street, and she's screaming. She's screaming, "Steve's trying to kill me." 2 o'clock in the morning for anybody who served in law enforcement capacity on a Tuesday is typically your time to relax. I jump out of my vehicle, I ask her to stand by. What's wrong? She points to a man at the top of her lawn, and I was a cop in Jackson, Mississippi, and she says to me, "That man Steve is trying to kill me." I said, "Ma'am, just stand by." I go and walk over to Steve. I said, "Steve, let me talk to you for a minute." Steve says, "No. If you got something to say, you come up here." Now, mind you, in the South, the porches are very large. There's a porch light behind him, and all I can see is his silhouette. I saw a man that was a lot larger than me, nothing to lose, muscles trembling, and traps coming up to his neck. I said, "Steve, stand down and come here. Let me talk to you for a minute." As I see a knife in his hand, he looks at me and says, "If you want to talk to me, you better come up here." In that instance, I drew my weapon. See, in that moment, I wasn't wearing a vest because there were some things that I did in my past as I served my country and served my city in that ordinance, in that capacity, that I wanted to be taken out. I wasn't going to take myself out because it wasn't the right thing to do, and my family wouldn't get my death benefits. But if I was taken out by a suspect, I was okay with that. So on that night, I didn't have my vest on. And as I'm drawn to the weapon, some of you guys know what I'm talking about. I was about 2.5 pounds of trigger pull into a 5-pound trigger, which means I had that trigger pulled and I was about to take this individual out named Steve. And as I'm pulling the trigger and pulling the trigger and pulling the trigger, "Steve, stand down," my adrenaline starts to take over. My olfactory glands could pick up the sweat on his glands. I could pick up the dew in the grass. And then all of a sudden I hear the words, "Daddy." And I see the 7-year-old boy peek from around Steve's quads. Then I see a 5-year-old boy. And then I see a 3-year-old boy sitting in the windowsill. In that moment, I had to make a decision. Do I take this man out and leave his children fatherless, which in turn they will look at law enforcement in a completely different light? No, I said to myself, "You know what, God? I'm ready to go. And if my only purpose in this life is to change and positively affect these 3 young men and allow their father to live, I'm okay being taken out." So I holstered my weapon, and just as I holstered my weapon, Steve comes running off the porch, and we collided. I blacked out in that moment, and I was able to effect the arrest. And to this day, I live with the fact that I was able to save the life of not just one man, but a family, a household. And I put my 2 weeks notice in after that. There are many of you, maybe you're not kicking in doors. Maybe you're not serving warrants with a bulletproof vest. But you have that thing in your life that brings you to that brink. It brings you to the edge, and it has you question whether or not you're going to see tomorrow. I'm not asking you to raise your hand, but I'm acknowledging the fact that you exist. My mantra at that moment was change one life every day for the rest of my life. So tonight, I'm talking to one person. That's it. I'm talking to one person that's thinking about letting everything go. And it's very easy not to acknowledge your greatness because everybody else around you is living in this Instagram, this fake social world. You're not that person. You're beautiful on the inside and you're beautiful on the outside. I want you to remember 4 count. I want you to understand how powerful your influence is. I want you to understand that there is somebody that you've impacted that you don't even know exists. I don't know where those 3 young men are today, but I do know they don't have a negative outlook on law enforcement. My actions that day have saved multiple lives. I don't need recognition or validation that it's happened. I just know that it have. And I know that it has. I want you to understand that the words of positivity that you whisper to yourself day in and day out, the words of positivity and encouragement and validation and inspiration that you whisper to others day in and day out is life-changing. I want you to understand that, yes, sometimes things may suck, but trust me when I say, when you are standing over a man, breathing his last breath, and you're watching the soul just suck into the blacks of his eyes, and the only thing that he can say is, tell my mother I love her, can you text her? I didn't know his mother, but when you see that happen, you're able to look at people in their eyes and see the beat of their heart and understand that, yes, they may have done you wrong. They may have hurt you. And some of you have yet to forgive your parents, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of age. I will tell you this. It is not for you to understand why the things happen to you that happen to you. It is just for you to be able to forgive. Because I guarantee you that if your lack of forgiveness, the one person that I'm talking to tonight, your lack of forgiveness is stunting your growth in so many areas of your life. And that person that you're waiting for them to apologize, they have forgotten the things that they've done to you because they have their own garbage to deal with. So just accept the fact that you're alive. You have a heartbeat. You have the ability to make change in other people's lives. You have the ability to feel your own heartbeat. You have the ability to spread positivity, to spread encouragement. You have what's called a 4 count. And if you need to wake up in the middle of the night and knock out the Dom Faussette 4 count, I suggest that you do it. And just say to yourself, Mom, Dad, Uncle, cousin, employer, ex-spouse, ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, children, I forgive you. And begin to forgive yourself. It took me 10 years to forgive myself. And it was the moment that I forgave myself that I was able to love myself. It was the moment that I forgave myself that I was able to look into the mirror and say, Dom Faussette, I don't know what your purpose is on this life, on this planet, but you're breathing, which means you can take one step forward and you can move. You can take another step forward and you can move. You can right, left for the rest of your life until you make the change necessary to make the impact necessary to change one life every day for the rest of your life. It is not about your followers. It's about your ability to smile even when things don't start the way they're supposed to start. Guess what? You're breathing. I was at the desk. I told her, she said, I'm sorry. I said, ma'am, I'm not getting shot at. We're good. You're smiling. You're pretty. I will just stand by and wait to be seated. I got seated immediately. Why? Because of my attitude, because of my 4 count, because of I've acknowledged that you're able to breathe. And I'm just here to change one life every day for the rest of my life. I ask that you adopt that mantra. Change one life every day for the rest of your life. Because there's a hospital 8.3 miles away from here, and there's a husband holding the hand of his wife, knowing that she's not going to make it to see tomorrow. And guess what? You're not that man. So we can easily find so many things to, I'm going to lightly use the word complain about. But you're better than that. We believe in, when I say we, I mean veterans, honesty, integrity, loyalty, and service. You know what? Do me a favor. Repeat after me. Honesty, integrity, loyalty, and service. Honesty, integrity, loyalty, service. If you adapt that to your life every single day, trust me when I say you will make an impact not just on your life, but those around you. And I want to say, brothers and sisters in arms, for those of you that serve, and I'm not just talking about Army. I'm just not talking about the Marine Corps. I'm not just talking about the Air Force. I'm not just talking about Coast Guard. I'm not just talking about Navy. Sorry, it's a personal thing. You guys did me wrong my first deployment. I was K-9. I had to search, because of my lower rank, I had to search gasoline trucks. Bomb dog, gasoline trucks. It don't go well if my job doesn't go well. I'm just saying, so Navy, nothing personal. But I'm talking to first responders. Because there's nothing like leaving your house knowing that this might be the last time that you touch your doorknob. And if it wasn't for brothers and sisters like you, my armed service members, my first responders, trust me when I say, I, Don Faussette, would not be here. My mother wouldn't have a son, my brothers wouldn't have a brother, and I wouldn't be standing on this stage talking to you tonight. But I've been able to acknowledge the fact that, yes, it took me 10 years to understand I have PTSD, and I'm okay with that. I don't take medication for it, not knocking those that do, but you learn to adapt to who you are based off the life experience that you've been exposed to. And it's for you, brothers and sisters in arms, that I want to salute. And I thank you for your service. And for those of you who have never served in that capacity, on behalf of every veteran in this room, we salute you and thank you for allowing us to have somebody to serve. So the next time that you see a veterans behind closed doors, we laugh about the thank you for your service thing. Like I know we all do, I do it with my buddies. Don't say thank you for your service. Anybody who knows a veteran, just ask them what they did, but make sure you have about 30 minutes to spare because they love telling stories. We love to tell, ask them what capacity they served in. Don't just thank them for their service and move on because you don't know what it takes to serve. You don't know what it looks like to lose a brother or to lose a sister. Don't thank us for our service. Ask us what we did and how we did it. That's going to mean more to us because you're acknowledging us. And it is so hard for us as brothers and sisters in arms to acknowledge even just the fact that we breathe and we made a difference. And if you see a brother and sister in arms, my ask is that you just hug them. And let me explain to you the power of love. Understand this. There was a moment in time as I'm wrapping up that I hated the world. I was leading a team in the finance industry, but I hated everybody I came in contact with. And then one day I made a decision that the next woman that I engaged interaction with, I'm just gonna be vulnerable. I'm gonna let it all out because I can't handle the pain. I can't handle not being able to sleep for 2 days in a row and then go to work the next day. I can't handle that. So one day I meet this young lady and I said, look, and this is day 2. I explained to her everything I've done, every negative thing I've done to every person that I unfortunately came in contact with because of my insecurities of things I was dealing with. I explained to her everything. And with tears in my eyes, I just assumed this was it, day 2. It's a lot to take on. Her response to me was, I love you no matter what. And I don't know where my wife is, but I know she's in this room. Honey, this is for you, and I love you with all my heart. I would not be here if it wasn't for you. And again, on behalf of every armed service man and woman, those that are here and those that unfortunately can't be here because they're 6 feet under, I truly thank you for your time, your honesty, your integrity, your loyalty, your service. Thank you. Don Faussette, and I'm out.